I zeroed down on three options: marketing, consulting, and finance.
Mhm.
Marketing, usually used to come later in the latter stages of the process. So marketing was always a backup in terms of an open choice because marketing also prefers freshers, is what we were told. And
Mhm.
that is why, it was like a safe choice that eventually, if I don't get anywhere, marketing will be my solace. BCG did not shortlist me. And that, was a really big dent into my hopes. But then Bain did. And
Mhm.
that's where I also realized there's no set criteria for them to shortlist you. Either you get shortlisted or either you don't. You can't just figure out things. I obviously told my friends, and then they put a lot of alcohol down my throat, and we had a lot of fun.
Hello and welcome.
To PPO Journeys.
I am Manas Sathe, a chartered accountant, MBA from IIM Indore, and now an incoming senior associate at BCG. In this series, I will host achievers who will share stories on how they secured their internships and bagged PPOs from some of your dream recruiters like the MBBs, Google, JP Morgan, Unilever, TAS, ABG, and many more. So, let's jump right in.
Hello and welcome. On today's episode, we have Kshitij Garg. Kshitij is an engineer who went on to obtain his MBA from FMS, secured his some placement at Bain and Company, did a fantastic job there, got a PPO from Bain and Company, and would be joining them very, very soon. Well, Kshitij, we're absolutely glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Manas. Really glad to be here.
Good to know. So let us start with your MBA journey. When you started out going into MBA, appearing for CAT, you must have some expectations. Then the 2 years went by with lots of experiences, and now you must have had some retrospectives, right? So what was your journey throughout, and how do you feel about it now?
So in terms of starting, I did not really have much of a plan to pursue an MBA straight out of college. Had a plan to do it a couple of years later, but then, as happens in a lot of Indian households, you're forced to give CAT. So they asked me to give. My family asked me to prepare for CAT, and I did some very basic things. Prepared for a couple of hours every day. Did every topic diligently, etc. And then eventually, although I had no plan, I just went to give the exam, and I somehow got a good percentile, got a few
Mhm.
calls, and FMS was my best call. Eventually, I got into FMS. But in terms of what my expectations, I because I did not have a plan, so I was not that uh, well researched about how B schools are. I was just going with the flow. And when you see placement reports, you think it's a 32 lakh average or it's a 30 lakh average. You think
Yeah.
it's going to be chill now. It's going to be very easy. But then eventually, when you get in and all the
Yeah, you
seniors
find
are,
out what those averages really
yeah,
mean. Yeah.
and and at the same time, the sort of actually hard work that goes behind achieving even half of that average, irrespective of uh what they are. But so when I went in, I had a very different sort of maybe vision in terms that it will be very chill. I'll be able to go in and hang out as much as possible, no problem. But then the summer's grind starts, where you have to be on meets endlessly, where you have to be on call endlessly, and you can't have even a single blip, because if you do,
Right.
the seniors, the committee seniors, the placement cell, everyone will be on your ass that this is something that they'll call you out for. So
Right.
that was pretty different in terms of expectation. But then that is where I learned a lot of things. I stopped getting scared of even the most difficult tasks, even the most stringent deadlines, because that's how it was. And it was amazing. And post that 4 or 3 month period where you are working tirelessly, I think
Mhm.
once you get the benefit of that, once you get the fruit of that by getting placed, I think post that it's comparatively chill, especially because of the sort of grind that you had to go through before.
So then let's come to probably what was the most stressful part or B school journey, right? Which is the summer place. Did you go in specifically looking at consulting as your domain? How did you go about making that decision?
I had to look at the thing in terms, what are my choices that might be open to me. It's not just, what you want. The sort of domain also has to want you.
Right.
Where product management, went out of the window, no work
Mhm.
experience, so they were not going to take me.
Mm.
And I realized that quite early, which is why, I did not also focus a lot of my prep on product management anyway. But eventually, I zeroed down on three options: marketing, consulting, and finance.
Mhm.
Marketing, usually used to come later in the latter stages of the process. So marketing was always a backup in terms of an open choice because marketing also prefers freshers, is what we were told. And
Right.
that is why, it was like a safe choice that eventually, if I don't get anywhere, marketing will be my solace. Uh,
Mm.
but then I had a finance internship, which is where, my interest in finance was present. Secondly, there's not a lot of competition in finance. Not a lot of people know anything. Most of the people don't even get a basic accounting principle, so that's a plus. Finance was my first preference, and then came consulting. I was scared of consulting, but my profile aligned with it. I was a fresher. My cards were decent. I had a decent internship, and also at the same time, I think within if I compare within FMS, I think my batch profile my profile used to be, let's say, in the top half at least. So that meant that I had a lot more chance to get into consulting, and that was how I was deciding on what to go for.
Right. The best things usually get decided for you, right? Because you were scared of
Exactly.
consulting, you wanted to go for
Perfect.
finance, and now you've ended up in Bain. So
Exactly.
that kind of makes sense. So you mentioned that you were a fresher, right? No work experience. So did you feel a lot of competitive pressure on campus because of being a fresher?
Kind of. I mean, earlier it used to in the initial stages, you look at all these people through your laptop, on a Zoom meeting, and you think, these people. So okay, this person is, because there in the initial parts there are a lot of introductions. In every class there's an introduction. In every session there's an introduction. I think it's very important to back yourself. Think that again, you're here for a reason eventually. They took you because you were capable enough. Even if they compared you with, let's say, people who have WorkX and you still got in, that means, yeah, you have something. Even if not
Right.
WorkX, maybe something else that is, let's say, equally crucial for pursuing an MBA, or for being able to graduate out of MBA star candidate. And I think that's where I backed myself for
Right.
understanding that irrespective of the sort of differences that we have in skill set, maybe there's something else that I have, and maybe during these 3 months I'll be able to get a hold of it.
That's, I think, a very valuable insight. A lot of people are worried about being freshers or having too much work experience on the other side, being engineer versus being a non-engineer. In general, now in hindsight, what I see is everybody's worried about their background. I don't think
Exactly.
there's anybody who's super confident about their background. Everybody's comparing with everybody else, and that's a key feature of MBA, right? So what you said is very important in benchmarking with yourself, remembering that you're there for a reason, and not thinking about the past, but actually focusing on how you can do
Exactly.
better in the circumstances that you're at. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So when you started preparing for consulting finally, after the sort of elimination that you did with domains, how did you go about doing it? What kind of guidance sources did you use?
So because I was scared of consulting, I had to first understand what consulting is. I had a clue, because these the Bain, BCG, McKinsey, etc. They recruit for middle office roles from our UG. So I
Yeah.
had a clue, but then PG is a lot different in terms of the sort of requirements that they have from it, because they'll have a lot more client interaction. So it's a lot more focus on whether you're presentable, whether you're able to talk to people, whether they are able to hang out with you, so to say, which they use as a metric.
Right. The
And
airport test.
yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
at the same time, focus a lot more on problem solving than they do in other recruitment. So
Hmm.
for that, I needed to first understand what consulting was, and I turned to the basic platforms that you have. Maybe first, maybe doing case in point, maybe starting off with case in point, or maybe
Hmm.
starting off with Victor Cheng videos to understand the basic foundations of what consulting is. And
Hmm.
once I was done with that, then I started practicing cases with with seniors, which is again very good, because seniors have a
Yeah.
lot more experience in not, and sometimes it feels like they're just 1 year ahead of us, but I think that is the beauty of MBA. That 1 year ahead means a lot.
It's a big jump. Yeah.
It's a big
True.
jump. I mean, I could not 2 years back. I did not know I would turn out to be this person 2 years later. So it's a big jump anyway. So I think that's
Hmm.
very important. And doing those cases, analyzing those cases, talking to them about summer placements in general helped a lot. So that was
Right.
one aspect where I started practicing cases with my seniors. Eventually, I was not pursuing it very seriously. Like I said, finance was my first preference. So
Hmm.
uh, I was pursuing it more of, as if I get a shortlist, I'll do it. BCG did not shortlist me, and that was a really big dent into my hopes. But then Bain did, and
Hmm.
that's where I also realized there's no set criteria for them to shortlist you. Either you get shortlisted or either you don't. You can't just figure out things. Uh,
Right.
so once I got shortlisted, then I started practicing more cases, around 5 to 6 a day. Around
Hmm.
3 as interviewer, 3 as interviewee. That was
Yeah.
like for a good 1.5 months, where I practiced around 200 cases. Where eventually
Wow,
I
that's a lot.
and
Okay.
I had to,
Hmm.
because of the same thing, because I was feeling that work experience people are more, let's say, capable, etc. But then
Hmm.
once you realize, when you started doing it, I got more interested in it, and
Hmm.
then Bain also reinforced it by through their engagements, etc. So
Right.
extremely interesting experience, and eventually I started loving consulting by the end of my preparation.
You went through this entire preparation journey and finally D-Day arrived, right? It was time for your interview with Bain. So how did your interview go? Did it live up to your expectations and did you feel prepared for it?
My expectations were always, a little scary, especially when you're interning, when you're interviewing for a consulting role where the sort of questions they can ask you. There's no limit. There's no breadth or length or depth of questions that they can ask. It was sort of scary, and on top of that, we were supposed to talk to partners or interview with partners, which was again making it even scarier because you cannot afford to, even slip up a little because that might just and that is how cases work, right? Any sort of math does not work out in terms of slipping up. It just extrapolates itself to a very, very bad math. So,
True.
because of which I was scared. But then when I entered the interview room, I was scared. But the sort of aura they had, they made me very comfortable. They made me very, they were very easy to talk to. They were very chill to talk to, because of which I was able to perform to the best of my abilities. I was not scared. I was not, let's say sweating. Ki, what are they asking me? I don't know this. Even if I did not know something in a case, they were pushing me, that this you can maybe look at it this way, maybe look at it this way, which reinforced my belief that this is a good firm to work for because they're trying to recruit me. It's not like they've given a short list of X people and they're trying to, just take, some sort of Y people out of that. They want to take as many people as they can, as long as they find good people.
So that is a feature of consulting firms. I think the interviews aren't really meant to be interviews. They make you comfortable and keep it
Yeah.
in a conversant manner so that you can actually do your best because they want to bring out the best. And like you rightly said, they invest a lot in right from shortlisting you, right? Fancy campus dinners and whatnot. So they do want to hire you. So that should be comforting because as long as you put your best foot forward, there's a good chance of you making it.
Exactly.
And what was your introduction to Bain like? You must have had a very nice induction where they sell you a firm, tell you about what you're supposed to do. How did the induction go?
So the induction was a little unsettling at first, to be honest. I think a lot of us were coming from online campuses where, although campus was offline, obviously, the classes were online. A lot of us were coming from online work experience, etc. So there was a little unsettling. There was a little different at first, and for the firm as well. I think Bain was also holding the first summer associate program offline after a couple of years, so it was very exciting for them as well. So they were also very, charged up and all of that. And the first day, we took some time to know each other, etc. Before the first day started, because we reached our hotels like a day before. So a few of us got together. We did not know each other, but a few of us got together. We had dinner. We, came to know each other, etc. And then eventually, the next day it started. So the whole week, they tried to obviously uh, transition us into the firm, tell us about what sort of principles do they stand for. Bain told us, about our true north is there, where we give the true value to the clients, irrespective, etc., etc. What is ZD? What is zero defect? What is and how these things work. So they did their best, and they gave us a hamper on the first day of our internship as well, which was again just reinforcing my shift from IB to consulting even further.
Right.
I think that happened, but then we got to know our summer associates over the induction period, which was amazing. We went out for a couple of parties. A few of us passed out, and we had that amount of fun.
So the induction must have left you very excited, right? Like you said, you met peers of various types, and the firm also more hampers, selling you on the firm. So you must have been very excited to start working. What was the rest of your interview like? Very open-ended question, but how did that go for you?
So we were told that we'll get a project assigned at the end of the week, and it was a Friday evening. We were just having fun when the long dreaded project Excel came, that this is the mapping of the projects. And very coincidentally, I don't know if this is destiny, to be honest, but I got assigned a case of a client which was a QSR chain, quick service restaurant, which I love gorging on. So
very interesting.
so it was a total, I think, destiny, because that made the problem for me anyway a lot more interesting, a lot more exciting to work on. And eventually we kicked off the case, we understood, and the case was starting. So there was not it was not like, the case has been going on for a lot of time. So the case was just starting, so we could contribute a lot more, at least in the formation of the structure in terms of how to go about the case, etc. We got assigned, we started our work, etc. And then eventually our team, especially our team, was amazing in terms of the support that they gave. There's a lot of help that you can get from your team. And in Bain, the thing is, in the induction week, they tell us that you are interns. It's not, but if not anything, it's your responsibility to make some mistakes, because if you don't, then you're not an intern. So
Right.
we had that responsibility, and I did, did do well on that responsibility. I made quite a few mistakes, and but the more important part is that they told us that, irrespective of the mistakes you make, tell us about those mistakes and improve on those mistakes as soon as possible. And that's what the team environment was also about. So
Mm.
rest of the internship went great. The sort of work I was doing was impactful because I was excited about the project in general, and the
Mhm.
problem was very interesting. They wanted us to create a strategy for them for some years into the future, full
Mhm.
potential strategy, and that was extremely interesting as well.
Now I'll ask you the question of the hour, right? Why did you get the PPO? What did you do right? What skills did you have that set you apart and impressed your manager to give it to you?
I think to be very frank, it was just doing the tasks well. But I think that's irrespective. In a short term period, that's a very uh, big ask of a candidate, because you have to learn, you have to upskill, and you have to at the same time deliver. What I did was, I think I broke the internship. I took it one time at a day, one day at
Mm.
a time. I did not put too much pressure on it. That it's a, let's say it's a 2 month long project or a 3 month long project. Or you just take it one day at a time, because it's an 8 week period. When you're
Mm.
a full time employee, then it's a different game altogether. But when you're an
Correct,
intern,
true.
it's a different sort of thing, right? Uh, so I took it one day at a time, small tasks. Within those tasks, I for myself, I decided a flow on terms of how to best give that task and eventually get evaluated on.
Mhm.
So firstly, I always used to sort of understand what the sort of problem is at hand, and evaluate what sort of time will it take.
Mm.
So there was a very clear expectation setting in terms of this is the sort of time it will take. Because let's say if they want it in 2 hours, and you do not tell them that, and you do it in 6 hours, and there will be a bad impression. It will be a bad communication. Then the output will not be that good. They will not be able to review it. The partner will not be happy. The client will not be happy eventually.
Right.
So
The
I had
project ultimately suffers. Yes.
ultimately suffers. So you
Mm.
have to be very clear in terms of what sort of output do you want to give, and what sort of time will it take, what sort of hard work will it require from your side, and how will you be able to give it, right?
Mm.
Once you align that output with the sort of expectations that you have with respect to that output, uh, then once you're done with it, I've done it in 2 hours. I sit back, I look at it, from a perspective of a person who has not seen it at all, and then
Yeah.
I see that if I'm able to understand it or not.
Mm.
I used to even show it to some of my co-interns who were at Bain. They look at
Mm.
this, tell me if this is making sense for you. And they also used to give some pretty useful insights. And it's very important to do, because that just improves the quality of your output, and that reduces your error, which means that it will be more likely to have lesser be a lesser burden on your manager or on your supervisor when they review it. Once I gave it, I'm done with it. First, I used to just pat myself on the back that I've done it again, and
Yeah.
that's important because of the sort of constant pressure that you're under. But more
True. Very true.
importantly, I think it was then important to establish again a communication line with the manager or supervisor, where you take constant feedback that I did this task. Did you find this task enough, or did you think there was something lacking? Maybe my time management was bad. Maybe my PPT making was bad. Maybe my Excel making was bad. Maybe the message I was trying to make was bad. Anything
Mm.
of that sort. What are my green points? What are my green flags? What are my red flags? So
Yeah.
I had that constant touch with them, and Bain has a very very good internal feedback system. I don't know uh, if I see a better system anywhere. I had weekly connects with them, weekly feedbacks with them, and they gave feedback to me. It was not like I have to chase them to give me feedback. They readily gave feedback to me for my improvement. And obviously, because they're investing a lot, they want to give as many PPOs as possible. They don't want to spend again on recruit.
All in all, take it one day at a time. Don't take too much pressure. Break down your tasks, commit timelines, and then stick to those commitments. Once you deliver any output, then sit back, look at that output to make sure that it actually makes sense, and don't give in to your own biases. Once you do give that output out, pat yourself on the back for a job well done. Also very important, very important. And finally, constant communication and feedback to make sure
Right,
you're course correcting and not going astray, so you don't have unpleasant surprises at the end. That is
right,
what worked well for you, right?
right. Perfect.
Mhm. Great, great. Very, very interesting story. And then finally, of course, you got your PPO. You did a fantastic job. How did you find out about the PPO? And more importantly, how did you celebrate?
I came to Chandigarh. The session was not starting for another month, but
Mhm.
because of some commitments, I had to go to Delhi earlier.
Yeah.
So I went to Delhi. I was looking for a flat there, and because famously FMS does not have a campus, so I was looking for a flat there, and
Mm,
I got a call from a partner that we would love for you to join next year. And
mm,
firstly, I was obviously surprised because although I for myself in terms of benchmarking myself against myself, I had done well, that I had improved a lot over those 2 months, but I did not know whether that improvement is enough for them or not. So
yeah.
that was extremely good to hear. And eventually, once that was done, I obviously told my friends, and then they poured a lot of alcohol down my throat, and we had a lot of fun. It was relieving, to be honest, because of two reasons. One, obviously, now the grind stops.
So now all of this being said, have any parting messages or tips for aspirants that are going into their MBA now and want to someday end up at a recruiter like Bain?
If you're joining your MBA right now, and it has not started yet, please sleep as much as possible. That's the most
Very
important thing.
true.
I think Manas will also agree that you need to sleep. You don't need to worry.
Absolutely.
You don't need to worry about what will happen inside. Inside all of these forces, all of your seniors, all of your committees, all of your placement cells, your faculty coordinators, everyone uh, will ensure, will enable you to get placed, and will enable you that ensure that eventually you get the most out of this experience. So do not take that much of pressure on yourself. Obviously, work as hard as possible for you, but eventually you will get placed. So do not take that amount of pressure that what if I do not get placed. You will,
Mm.
but then you'll have to work hard for it.
Awesome. I think that brings us to the end of today's episode, and that was a very, very insight story, Kshitij. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people achieve the stuff they want to achieve out of their MBA and out of their internships. So thank you a lot. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Manas. Thank you.